Rachel had always been close to her mother. When her mother passed away in 2022 due to brain cancer, the loss left a deep void in her heart. For a year, she stayed in the house her mother left behind, but every room echoed with memories that sometimes felt too heavy to bear. So, she made a bold decision. She would rent out the house for $2,000 a month and take to the road in the converted 2010 van that once belonged to her mother. The van was more than just a vehicle to Rachel. It was a symbol of freedom, a way to carry her mother's spirit with her as she journeyed along the east coast of America. The summer months, with their fine weather, were her favorite time to travel. She loved the sense of adventure that came with exploring new places, and she found solace in the quiet beauty of the mountains and the serene calm of lakes. During her travels, Rachel met many interesting people who, like her, had chosen the nomadic life. There were others living in converted buses, vans, and even lorries. The camaraderie among these travelers was comforting, but Rachel was always mindful of the dangers that came with being alone on the road, especially at night. She made it a rule to only park for the night when there were several other vehicles around for safety. Her pepper spray was always within reach, and while she had no gun, she hated violence. She felt secure enough with the precautions she took. One summer evening, after driving nearly 10 hours nonstop, Rachel found a perfect spot to spend the night near a lake. The area was peaceful, with the sun still hanging low in the sky, casting a warm golden light over the water. She parked her van and looked around. There were 10 other vehicles nearby, with the closest one about 40 meters to her right and another 60 meters to her left. It seemed like a safe place to settle in for the night. From inside her van, Rachel noticed a woman cooking outside a nearby van. A man sat close by, watching the woman with a contented expression. The scene was simple yet heartwarming, and Rachel felt a pang of longing for the days when she and her mother would cook together during their own road trips. Feeling a bit more secure with others around, Rachel decided to step out of her van to stretch her legs and perhaps introduce herself to the couple. She had learned over the months that fellow travelers were often friendly and eager to share stories or advice. As she approached the couple, the woman looked up from her cooking and smiled. "Hi there," she called out cheerfully. "Looks like we've got ourselves a little community tonight." Rachel smiled back, feeling a sense of warmth and connection. "Yeah, it does. I'm Rachel." "I'm Mia," the woman replied, wiping her hands on a towel before extending one to Rachel. "And this is my husband, Tom." Tom gave a nod and a friendly wave. "Nice to meet you, Rachel. You've got a great spot there. This lake is beautiful, isn't it?" "It really is," Rachel agreed, glancing back at the calm water, now reflecting the colors of the setting sun. "I couldn't resist stopping here for the night." Mia motioned towards the small campfire she had going. "We were just about to have some dinner. You're welcome to join us if you'd like." Rachel hesitated for a moment, still adjusting to the idea of relying on the kindness of strangers. But there was something comforting about Mia and Tom's presence, and she realized she could use the company after a long day on the road. "That sounds great, thank you," Rachel said, her smile widening. As they sat around the fire, sharing stories of their travels and plans for the future, Rachel felt a sense of belonging she hadn't expected to find on the road. The grief that had weighed so heavily on her heart seemed to lighten a little, replaced by the warmth of new friendships and the hope of more adventures to come. Before Rachel settled into her van for the night, she glanced to her left and noticed two young men standing outside their own van, deep in conversation. They looked like they might be brothers, with similar features and easy camaraderie. When Rachel waved at them, they waved back, smiling warmly. "Hey there," one of the men called out. "Why don't you come over and join us for a bit?" Rachel hesitated for just a moment before deciding to walk over. The two men introduced themselves as Joe and Henry, aged 24 and 26, respectively. They were indeed brothers, and their friendly demeanor put Rachel at ease right away. As they chatted, Rachel learned that Joe and Henry had been on the road for a few months, exploring the country together. They spoke of the places they'd visited and the people they'd met, sharing stories that mirrored Rachel's own experiences. "Can we get you something to drink?" Joe asked after a while. "We've got some coffee brewing," Rachel smiled, appreciating their hospitality. "Coffee sounds great, thanks." As they sipped their coffee and continued to talk, Rachel felt a sense of connection with the brothers. Their friendly nature and the warmth of their conversation made her feel at home, even in the middle of nowhere. It was one of those moments that made life on the road so rewarding, the chance encounters and the friendships that formed, however briefly. After a while, Rachel thanked Joe and Henry for the coffee and the conversation, then made her way back to her van. Settling in for the night, she reflected on the evening. The kindness of strangers had made the vast, open road feel a little less lonely, and she felt grateful for the unexpected friendships she was forming on her journey. At 12 o'clock midnight, Rachel finally closed the book she had been reading for the past hour. Her eyes were heavy with exhaustion, and she could barely keep them open. She set the book aside, feeling the weight of the long day catching up to her. As soon as her head hit the pillow, she instantly fell into a deep, restful sleep, her mind drifting far away from the road, the lake, and the van that had become her home. Rachel was suddenly jolted awake by a series of knocks at her van door. Her heart pounded in her chest as she tried to shake off the remnants of sleep. She murmured to herself, "Who on earth is knocking on my door in the dark of the early morning?" The knocking persisted, growing more insistent with each passing second. Rachel's fear began to mount. She remained silent, hoping whoever it was would go away, but the knocking continued, relentless and unyielding. A cold wave of dread washed over her as she whispered to herself, "What does he want from me?" Her mind raced with possibilities, each more frightening than the last. As she lay frozen, unsure of what to do next, Rachel's fear escalated as the relentless knocks continued. Her mind raced, and she fumbled in the dark until her hand finally closed around the cold, familiar shape of her pepper spray. She gripped it tightly, ready to defend herself. Suddenly, a man's voice pierced the night, soft yet disturbingly firm. "Open the door. If you don't open it, I will break the window." Panic surged through Rachel, and she couldn't stop herself from blurting out, "What do you want?" The man's response sent chills down her spine. "I want you. I want to have a good time with you." Rachel froze, paralyzed with fear, unsure of what to do next. She barely had time to react before she heard a loud bang on the window near the door. The glass shattered, the sound echoing through the van like a scream. Before she could process what was happening, the intruder reached through the broken window, unlocked the door, and forced his way inside. He grabbed Rachel with brutal force, his intentions clear and horrifying. Rachel struggled, her heart racing, desperately trying to fend him off as terror overwhelmed her. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the van, and the intruder stumbled forward, struck from behind. The light from a torch illuminated the scene, revealing one of the brothers, Joe, wielding a stick. He had struck the intruder, catching him off guard. Within moments, Henry appeared with two police officers who had arrived on the scene just in time. Together, they apprehended the intruder, restraining him as the officers swiftly handcuffed him. The intruder struggled but was overpowered, and the officers forced him out of the van and into the police car waiting outside. Rachel sat in shock, her body trembling as she realized how close she had come to disaster. The relief washed over her as she saw the intruder being driven away, and she knew she had been incredibly lucky. Joe and Henry stayed by her side, their presence a comforting reminder that she was not alone. Mia and Tom, who had been nearby, quickly came over when they realized something was wrong. They offered Rachel words of comfort and support, staying with her for about half an hour until they were sure she was okay. Their kindness helped to ease Rachel's shaken nerves, even if just a little. As the night wore on, Joe and Henry refused to leave her side. They stayed with Rachel until the morning, doing their best to comfort her. They brewed fresh coffee, the warm aroma filling the van, offering a small sense of normalcy after the terrifying ordeal. Their presence made Rachel feel safe, and she was grateful to have such caring people by her side during one of the most frightening nights of her life. In the morning, Joe and Henry offered to accompany Rachel to a nearby workshop to get the broken window replaced. Their support and willingness to help reassured Rachel, and she gratefully accepted their offer. Together, they set off to get her van back in shape, knowing that with friends like Joe and Henry, she wasn't alone on her journey. In the aftermath of the incident, the three of them formed an unbreakable bond. Joe and Henry stayed with Rachel until morning, offering comfort and reassurance. They became her protectors and companions on the road, traveling in their separate vans but always sticking close. As they journeyed together, Rachel found herself drawn to Joe. His courage during the attack had left a lasting impression, and she admired his strength and determination. Joe, in turn, was captivated by Rachel's resilience and independence. Their friendship blossomed into something deeper, though neither dared to speak of it openly at first. Henry, at 26, was the elder brother and naturally took on a protective role. To Rachel, he was like the brother she never had, always ready with a joke to lighten the mood or a shoulder to lean on when memories of her mother became overwhelming. But Joe was different. There was an unspoken connection between them, a warmth that grew with every shared sunset and campfire story. One evening, as they sat around a campfire beneath a starlit sky, Rachel found the courage to express her gratitude to Joe. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been there that night," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I owe you my life." Joe looked at her, his eyes reflecting the flickering flames. "You don't owe me anything, Rachel. I'm just glad we were there to help. But I am happy that we're traveling together now." Rachel smiled, her heart full of gratitude and something else, something new and exhilarating. As the fire crackled between them, she realized that Joe was more than just a hero. He was someone she could see herself building a future with. In the weeks that followed, Rachel and Joe's relationship deepened. They shared stories of their pasts, dreams for the future, and silent moments that spoke volumes. With each mile they traveled, they became more than friends, and Rachel felt her heart open to the possibility of love and healing. Their journey together was not just about the destinations they visited, but the connections they forged along the way. Rachel knew that the road would always be her home, but now she had found something more, a sense of belonging with Joe and Henry. The brothers had not only saved her from a terrifying ordeal, but had also given her the gift of companionship and the hope of a brighter tomorrow. As they continued their travels, Rachel realized that life's journey was best experienced with those who cared for you, and she knew she had found that with Joe and Henry. Together, they embraced the freedom of the open road, creating a tapestry of memories woven with laughter, love, and the promise of new adventures. Rachel smiled, her heart full of gratitude and something else, something new and exhilarating. As the fire crackled between them, she realized that Joe was more than just a hero. He was someone she could see herself building a future with. In the weeks that followed, Rachel and Joe's relationship deepened. They shared stories of their pasts, dreams for the future, and silent moments that spoke volumes. Joe occasionally featured Rachel in his travel videos, sharing snippets of their journey together with his audience. Meanwhile, Henry enjoyed introducing Rachel to new foods, sometimes filming her reactions for his channel, which added a delightful dynamic to their travels. With each mile they traveled, they became more than friends, and Rachel felt her heart open to the possibility of love and healing. Their journey together was not just about the destinations they visited, but the connections they forged along the way. Rachel knew that the road would always be her home, but now she had found something more, a sense of belonging with Joe and Henry. The brothers had not only saved her from a terrifying ordeal, but had also given her the gift of companionship and the hope of a brighter tomorrow. As they continued their travels, Rachel realized that life's journey was best experienced with those who cared for you, and she knew she had found that with Joe and Henry. Together, they embraced the freedom of the open road, creating a tapestry of memories woven with laughter, love, and the promise of new adventures. With each new destination and video uploaded, they shared their story with the world, inspiring others to find courage, friendship, and love on their journeys.